Thank you for sticking with First at 4. As we told you at the top of the hour, today President Biden's son Hunter convicted of all 3 felony charges related to a 2018 revolver purchase. Now there's a lot of questions about the implications of that case and of course its outcome. Here to talk more about this is North Central College political science professor Stephen Caliendo. Thank you so much for being here.
Happy to see you.
I see you a lot, so I'm happy that you're here to sort this out for us. Let's start by talking about really the political implications of this case when it comes to the 2024 election. We have Hunter Biden and this verdict, and we also have the Trump verdict. How are people viewing this in the public when it comes to casting that ballot? Does this really matter for Joe Biden?
It's a great question. We're going to have to see some polling data in a couple of days now that the Hunter Biden verdict is in. We didn't see much movement after the Trump verdict. But again, those are short-term polls. What we're really interested, of course, is how much is going to affect where people are in November and which people in which states might they be moved. I think it's a little troublesome. Again, Tia, you asked the right question, but a little troublesome to compare them because, of course, one is the candidate that's running for president, and the other one is the son of a candidate who's running for president. And so I do think that there is a tendency, and I think the reason I think you asked a really good question, for people to sort of say, well, you know, both sides are a little bit messy. And it kind of ends up as an equivalence, but there is a substantive difference between those two cases.
Yeah, there is a difference, and I find it interesting that President Biden did speak at a gun control event hours after this verdict. No mention of the verdict. Do you think the president at some point will have to address this?
I don't think so, Tia. In fact, he probably shouldn't. You know, there was an odd scheduling glitch that he ended up at that event today when the verdict came down. Of course, that was long scheduled ahead of time. Couldn't have known. And there's some irony in this decision. In this verdict today, of course, because it will be appealed. And because it will be appealed, I think that's the reason why President Biden needs to probably stay quiet about it, other than saying he supports his son as a father, but stay quiet about the substance of it. But the irony part of it is a gun control activist will get behind the appeal. In other words, most gun control or most gun activists, pro-gun activists, do not like Biden and find gun control folks problematic. But this appeal will partly center on whether or not the law that he was just convicted of is constitutional, given the way the Supreme Court ruled a couple of years ago and the way a Texas federal court ruled just last year about whether or not people who are not violent criminals, don't have a history of violent crime, should be allowed to possess a firearm. So it's going to get real interesting real fast.
Yeah, I think you're right about that in terms of looking at gun laws and the wider implications behind it. Okay, let me ask you this. This will be my final question for you. Do you find it surprising that the jury returned a verdict relatively quickly in this case?
I don't. It was short. You know, it's funny because we were, you know, those of us who pay a lot of attention to these things had our eyes very carefully placed onto the Trump trial just a few weeks back. But it was many, many weeks. This was a much simpler case. There were only 3 counts. There were 4 elements of each count. It was only a week worth of witnesses. And so it's not surprising to me that it didn't take them a long time. Hearing from some of the jurors, they were pretty split, I guess, last night. There was still one holdout this morning. And then after a couple of hours, that person came around. So it didn't surprise me that they came back quickly. I was ready to jump on Fox 32 today. I knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's why we always love having you on. You're always prepared, even with all the questions that we throw at you. Professor Caliendo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tia.
All right.